At the University of Washington, the experiment was almost insultingly direct. A researcher wearing a rough caveman-style mask trapped crows, and then years later, the same mask appeared again on a different person. The reaction was immediate. The birds rushed it. They mobbed the dangerous face, even though the human inside was a stranger. The neutral mask shown beside it barely registered. It was ignored. The timeline tells the story plainly. The threat did not fade with time, because the profile stayed alive. That is what makes this so much bigger than a single bad encounter. It works like a living biometric database, where one face writes an entry and the system never deletes it. The birds are not just remembering a moment. They are storing a pattern and using it again. Through social learning, that pattern can spread through a flock like a shared alert file. One crow sees the face. Another learns it. Soon, the whole neighborhood is carrying the same warning. Now, flip the experiment around and ask what this means outside the lab. A face can travel farther than the event that created it. A bird that saw the mask can pass that recognition along, and the next bird inherits the same file without ever seeing the original trap. That is not isolated memory. That is a self-propagating neighborhood intelligence network, updating itself. Across seasons, across birds, across time. A single face can earn a permanent entry, and that entry can keep shaping behavior long after the human involved has forgotten the day it began. Start with the crow's head as hardware. Not in a poetic way, in a functional way. A human face enters the visual field, and the system begins separating useful features from noise. The shape of the eyes, the outline of the forehead, the movement pattern of the body underneath, the place where the encounter happens, the object in the hands, the sound, the posture, the direction of approach. The crow brain is running facial recognition software that tags humans with permanent metadata. Safe, uncertain, dangerous, known around food, known around traps, known around noise. Each tag is not a feeling. It is a behavioral instruction. That is why the profile is more than a picture. A face alone matters, but it gets locked to context. The same human shape near a nest, near a trap, or near a feeding site does not carry the same meaning. The brain binds the visual signature to outcome, then stores it in a way that can guide future decisions without starting from zero. In the simplest version, the crow sees you, matches the file, and changes its behavior. It may call. It may dive. It may keep its distance. It may do nothing, which can be just as telling. On the screen, that looks like a green check beside one silhouette and a red stamp beside another. But a single bird holding this file would be limited, because one head can only watch one angle of one straight at one time. A profile trapped inside a single skull dies with bad luck, bad weather, or one missing bird. That is not how this system is built. The profile isn't stored in one head. It is designed to travel. Once a crow has a file, the next step is not private storage. It is broadcast. A crow sees the marked human shape near the fence line, and the alarm call goes out. Not as a sentence, not as a name. More like a compressed signal, carrying urgency, direction, and social meaning. The sound wave leaves one beak, crosses the yard, and lands in other nervous systems already built to care. On the branch beside it, another crow turns its head. On the maple 2 houses down, A third bird stops scanning the grass. They may never have met you. They may not have been present when the original file was created. But they can still update their behavior from the signal alone. This is an early warning network, where one bird's observation updates the group's shared database in real time. One node detects. Nearby nodes receive. The profile card moves through the flock, like a red data packet, attached to a human silhouette, carrying one instruction: pay attention. This is where the system becomes larger than any single yard. Because the transmission is not only sound, it is also posture. It is who mobs, who stays back, who follows, who looks toward the street instead of the sky. Younger birds watch older birds react, and the reaction itself becomes training material. A face can become meaningful before direct contact ever happens. In plain English, the neighborhood does not need every crow to personally test every human. That would be slow, expensive, dangerous. The system simply copies the result. So the intelligence is not sitting inside one animal. It is spread across calls, glances, distances, branches, and repeated group reactions. Your face isn't just known locally. It is distributed. A young crow does not need the original incident. It can be hatched after the trap, after the mask, after the first alarm call ever happened, and still inherit the response. Not genetically, socially. It watches the older birds tighten their bodies when a certain face appears. It watches them lift from the branches, angle toward the same sidewalk, and pour their calls onto one human shape. That is training. Across the seasons, the branches change. Spring leaves cover the nest. Summer heat bends the fence shadows. Fall strips the tree back to black lines. Then winter clears the whole map. But the profile card remains, passed forward through repeated reactions, not through direct memory. The network doesn't reset when birds die. What persists is a self-updating cultural intelligence layer that treats human faces as stable landmarks in the environment. A roofline can be remembered. A feeder can be remembered. A dangerous face can be remembered the same way as part of the usable landscape. For a crow or a jay, this is survival logic. Testing every unknown human from scratch would waste time, energy, and maybe blood. So the group keeps shortcuts. Older birds demonstrate. Younger birds copy. The copied reaction becomes a rule, and the rule becomes local culture. In plain English, the neighborhood holds a memory that is not stored in any single brain. It lives in behavior, in calls, in who reacts first, and in which silhouettes still trigger movement years later. So when a bird studies you from a power line, it may not be forming a fresh judgment. It may be reading an inherited map. The file on you may already predate your time in the neighborhood. On a neighborhood grid, you are not a person first. You are motion. A shape leaves a doorway. A shape crosses a driveway. A shape pauses under the maple, bends near the trash bins, turns back when the dog barks. To you, these are forgettable fragments of a normal day. To the birds above the fence line, they are coordinates. Your daily path functions as live data feeding a distributed surveillance mesh. One crow watches you step into the yard and gives no alarm. Another tracks you from the power line. A jay catches the reaction from 2 houses away. The information does not need a server. It moves through posture, silence, sudden flight, and the exact direction of a call. Watch carefully, and the grid becomes visible. The trees turn into nodes. The fence posts become relay points. The roof edges become observation decks. On that map, your face is not floating alone. It is tied to routes, timings, objects, and outcomes. Did you walk straight past the nest tree? Did you stop and stare? Did you throw food? Did you carry a rake? Did you bring a cat carrier into the yard? Each detail updates the shared profile, not as a clean human file with neat labels and a final verdict, more like a living set of probabilities, refreshed whenever your movement crosses their survival space. Consistency makes you predictable. Erratic behavior makes you expensive to ignore. A single action can still matter if it happens near eggs, fledglings, food, or a known escape route. So, your backyard is not just background. It is an active interface between your habits and their intelligence layer. Every steady or erratic move you make is logged by a system built for survival. For the next 5 days, do not try to prove anything. Do not approach the birds. Do not test them. Just become a temporary analyst inside a larger intelligence architecture that has been running long before you arrived. Stand at the same window, porch, or back step for 3 minutes at a time. Morning if you can. Late afternoon if you can. Keep the setup boring. Same doorway. Same distance. Same quiet body. Day 1. Mark positions. 1 crow on the roof line. 1 jay in the oak. Another bird on the fence corner. Draw them as points, not personalities. You are mapping stations. Day 2. Mark reactions. Which bird looks first? Which one calls? Which one leaves without calling? Which one stays silent? While the others move, silence matters here, because silence can mean the profile is already settled. Day 3. Change one harmless variable. Wear a different hat. Carry a bag. Step out with a broom, then stop. Do not chase. Do not stare. Just record which node updates first and how far the signal travels. Day 4. Watch the edges. The important bird may not be the closest one. It might be 2 yards over, half hidden in a maple, working like a relay tower with feathers. Day 5. Compare the map. Look for repeated lines between birds, repeated perches, repeated timing, repeated warnings that show up before any obvious threat is there. That is the network becoming visible. Not a single crow with a grudge. Not one jay with a clever trick. A living neighborhood system, passing face information through attention, alarm, imitation, and young birds learning from older birds long before they ever test you themselves. Individual birds disappear. The architecture keeps updating. The data is already there. The only variable is whether you start reading it.